Welcome back to the Greybeards podcast, where we're discussing all things national security, but focusing on the Persian Gulf or the Arabian Gulf, whichever you prefer to say. With me, my two cohorts.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, they're the stars of the show. I just feel like I'm the ringmaster. But we have Ken Campbell, 4 decades experience in military intelligence and in naval special operations and in the private sector dealing with national security. And then Bob Sands, Hall of Fame investigative reporter, and me, Mike Betcher, former foreign correspondent
Hey, it's great.
for a couple of networks. Hey guys, how you doing? I thought we were going to have a quiet little night tonight, and all of a sudden, start seeing reports that the U.S. and Iran are exchanging quite a few missiles, the most that have been exchanged in quite a while, actually. It doesn't feel to me like full-out war
Well, the
is
last
back
thing I
on,
saw,
but things
Iran
are
was already
escalating.
firing missiles
What do you think?
at various Middle Eastern countries, UAE, Bahrain. They were already attacking them and our bases that are over there. Ken, have you heard anything?
Well, I'm monitoring the same news you all are. I know there's been attempts to strike U.S. military bases in Kuwait. Before we started the podcast, Mike had mentioned Bahrain. I have no doubt. I've not, taken a hard look at that, but there is quite a bit of kinetic action going on at this point.
Well, here, I think, let me pull this up. Let me share the screen here. This is from CENTCOM, and this was released within the last 90 minutes, maybe even less. But this, I don't know. This looks like what may have started it. This is video of a U.S. fired Hellfire missile hitting the back of an empty oil tanker that was ignoring calls, according to CENTCOM, to not enter Iranian ports. Was violating the blockade. Uh, and this is the particular ship. We should see that
Oh,
missile
yeah.
come in
There it is.
and
Whoa.
hit. Are you seeing this, folks? There it is. So that missile was fired. That was earlier today, and I was monitoring this and wondered what the reaction might be. It seems, I don't know if this was the precipitating action by the United States that caused tonight's exchange of missiles. Right now, again, it's being reported in Bahrain, Kuwait, where they've hit, I know, Ali Al Salem, which is a massive base and used a lot by, there's not a vet out there who hasn't passed through Ali Al Salem going to either Afghanistan or Iraq during that period. And but there are other bases, Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. So we have no idea right now the damage that was done. But I mean, Ken, do you think? I mean, would Bahrain? We were talking about this, but in the course of an attack like this, and in what's going on in the war, and basically this has turned into a missile drone war. It seems that base in Bahrain is vulnerable, but we have no idea what the damage has been done in previous attacks against it. In what you're reading, seeing, researching, it still seems operational. I mean, full steam operational. No one's pulling out, right?
I think that it is more than likely fully functional. I mean, the Naval Forces Central Command, U.S. Fifth Fleet is headquartered there. Their ops centers, logistics, everything is there. I think it probably taken steps to harden it since the first exchange going back to February 28th and into early March. But I don't think, quite frankly, that anybody has left station, if you will, Mike. I think that they may have certainly had, dependents exited from theater. But I think, from a military operational perspective, I think that they're fully functional and prepared, have been better prepared to deal with the missiles and the drones.
Well, it provides more of the backdrop to what's going on right now, which is it seems like nothing in terms of an agreement on this framework, which is meant to move forward with discussions and between Iran and the United States and our partners in the Gulf region. As long as these talks are stalled, I think both sides are poking around at each other, it feels to me right now. But the problem is, this could get out of hand very quickly.
Well, yeah, but here's a couple things, Mike, is that, we talk about the kinetic actions as causing the escalation, and that's part of it. But what's going on here in the parlay is the demands that the U.S. is levying, and then Israel going ahead and striking, Lebanon and Lebanese Hezbollah. And what where the situation stands now and why Iran pulled out of the talks yesterday and said the straits are closed yet again is that, again, they've stated there's a couple non-negotiable conditions. One, the cessation of Israeli operations in Lebanon and Gaza, and Israeli withdrawal from occupied Lebanese areas and preservation of the Iranian Omani Maritime Management Authority that they pitched several weeks ago. At the end of the day, I think really the key issue at this point is Israel's continued.
I heard an interview today from the BBC
Hezbollah.
With a Hezbollah official. And, there was this comment that the president had made that he had a conversation with Hezbollah. And this guy said no. And he wasn't very polite about it. He said, what most of us already have come to know. Trump just says stuff to make believe like that happened. He said nobody from Hezbollah has ever talked to the president. It's more possible that he talked to some legislator for Lebanon, some member of their congressional body. And they had some sort of conversation, but that wasn't Hezbollah. So, again, it's hard to know what's coming out of everything as to what the truth is. Just like this story that we saw also this week, that the attacks on U.S. bases caused a lot more damage than administration ever admitted. It was NPR that did that, PBS.
Yeah. Well, yes. I think, Bobby, the key here is you got to stop listening to what comes out of mouth and then pay attention to what's actually happening. So, in terms of the reported actions that have occurred in the last 48 to 72 hours, CENTCOM had launched a self-defensive strike on an Iranian radar drone command and control center, both of which were at Gorak and also Keshem Island. And, Bandar Abbas is where the ground control facilities are for some of the drones, or a good deal, I guess, of the drones that are being launched to operate in that area. We responded, particularly after Iran shot down one of our MQ-1s. And then there was 2 ballistic missiles launched at Ali al-Salam Air Base in Kuwait. Both of them were intercepted. The IRGC cited U.S. attack on telecom towers at Sirak Island as the trigger for doing that. And it goes on and on and on here. But again, I think the important thing is not to listen to what our administration is saying, because we know there's a tendency to overstate, if not just totally hyperbolize and lie. And this is a big problem. You know, it causes the adversary that we're trying to parlay with to certainly not trust that there's really any seriousness to the discussions. And, you know, quite frankly, our allies are seeing it the same way. So, you know, this is just really turned into foobar. And I think at the end of the day, and then I'll stop, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. At the end of the day, the real problem here
Yes.
is with regard to the enriched uranium and where things get left in this negotiation towards, you know, some kind of peace agreement. And the last thing President Trump wants to do is leave the situation in a worse state than when Obama cut the deal for the JICPOA. And I think that's going to be very, very hard
Well,
for him to do to get something that looks like a better deal. And it's unfortunate that, in my opinion, and this is, you know, based on a lot of time and experience there and working WMD issues and all this other stuff, that we have had a leaning in by our administration thinking this was going to be a walk in the park like what we did to Venezuela in capturing Maduro. And while Iran is not a peer adversary, they ain't Venezuela either. Anyway,
well, you're right.
I'd
I was
like to hear
just
you
going to
guys'
say,
thoughts
I
on
mean,
this.
it
Go ahead,
is
Bobby,
so
you were
hard
gonna
to
say something.
understand because what it is that the administration wants from day to day does seem to be changing. It's like, I want this now and I want this. You're not going to get that stuff just by sitting around demanding it. It took, what, 3 years to get the original deal that Barack Obama got? We're expecting to do it in a matter of weeks. I mean, come on, that's just reason.
Yeah, this administration had
Yes.
that shit to bed the first
And
time we launched on
it
the
is funny,
28th
and
of
we
February.
can't forget the fact that it was
It's
Trump
not
who
funny, but
killed
it's
that
funny.
deal that we had arranged already, and now he's in a pickle because he's got to make it look better. And you're right. I don't think he can.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've also got the GCC countries, except maybe the Emirates, you know, wanting to come to some terms with Iran because this whole thing is just bad for business. Meanwhile, Oman may come out on top of this in a way that they never even imagined. You know, being part and parcel to a toll booth experience in which they're getting a percentage of the tolls
Not
that
a
get
bad deal
levied
if you
on
can get it, I
commercial
guess.
shipping as they transit the strait.
Meanwhile, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the law of unintended consequences on that. And I just wanted to say, Ken, I mean, that, you know, what you say is, you know, don't listen to what they say, but what they do is so true. And I really, I really feel that the whole, and I know how that works. I worked in the White House press corps, and I covered that building. I know an authorized leak when I see it and how that all goes down. And this whole thing about Trump pushing back with Netanyahu and saying, "Are you fucking crazy?" Uh, I I think that was a directed leak from the White House to show President Trump as a tough guy pushing back on Netanyahu. That's precisely what that was. I don't think that was spontaneous at all. It was managed,
Yeah.
stage managed on that. So we're
Yeah.
we're seeing a lot of stage management going on.
Well, I think the problem is that uh, the American public is not stupid. They really aren't. And, you know, after a period of time, what comes out of
And you make a
mouth
very good point
versus
there.
what
They're not
happens
stupid, and
is
it's
easily
showing up in the polls.
recognizable.
We can talk about the polls later,
You know?
but he is underwater, unbelievable.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
these are unbelievably low numbers that are showing up for him. So we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Well, here's something. Here's something for you all to consider. BeastWorks Information Group put out a special report on the specter of oil supplies tightening up. The Exxon CEO on a call with investors and shareholders talked about the fact that the stored capacity, not necessarily reserve, but the stored capacity is way down. And at a certain point, you know, there's going to be a reckoning, and that reckoning is going to result in higher prices, potentially even going above 140 a barrel,
Yeah, I heard
until
150.
this thing
Yeah,
settles out and the oil starts to flow again. But that's something that, nobody wants to really talk about, but it has such downstream effects for every
that's an
business we've been
interesting
talking
map.
about that relies on fossil fuel.
S- Speaking of Israel, and I want to get back to that uh, reserve issue, Ken and Bob, but I just talking about. I mean, I still think this is where things are going to can go south really bad. This is southern Lebanon right here, where you can see my little cursor putting down. Um, and I had a picture up earlier of Beaufort Castle, which I've been by, yeah, literally, I can say hundreds of times. Because during the '82 invasion, I was in Beirut working for CNN, and we had no satellite capability. So we would, at the end of each day, drive at night down this coastal road. And this was at the time in '82 to '83, the Israeli invasion of southern Lebanon, which we're seeing the repeat of now. We would drive down with our videotapes and hand them off at the border to one of our Israeli fixers who would take them into Tel Aviv and feed our material out. And that was in 1982 and '83. And so this whole area I know well. Beaufort Castle, that was around here, what you saw a little earlier, and it's a point that you can't miss because it's this, castle that stands out on the top of a small hill, and it's the most dominating feature in that area. But what Israel wants to do is putting out the warnings was going into the southern suburbs of Beirut. I mean, using Gaza tactics, just bombing the hell out of southern Beirut, which is Hezbollah's stronghold, another place I know well. And it was in South Beirut where in 2000 I actually interviewed Hassan Nasrallah, Sheikh Nasrallah, who was the head of Hezbollah until he was killed by the Israelis here. Um, so, but I just think the Israelis are it. Look, Netanyahu has an election in October. I I I think they're itching to hit and take out the seat of Hezbollah power, which is southern Beirut. That would for sure set everything else off. I don't think there's any doubt that Trump knows the danger of this, and he was probably likely pissed at Netanyahu. The fact is, they leaked that to show that um, that he, it's not being pushed around by Netanyahu in Israel. Now, how that all came down, I don't know, but that's what I suspect, very strongly suspect.
Yeah,
But we got to be keeping a close eye on to the west, not just the east.
yeah,
And
absolutely, Mike.
yeah,
Yeah, so, here's the thing. Iran is stiffening its back with regard to Israel's strike against Lebanon, and they have leverage, and that leverage is, actually their center of gravity. It's coercive maritime leverage plus resistance front linkage, with Hezbollah and the Houthis, and there's a there's a dual choke point declaration confirming Tehran is preparing to escalate the maritime denial campaign if its political conditions regarding Lebanon and Gaza ceasefires are not enforced, plus sanctions and blockade relief are not met. Okay, and those are critical things. So again, they are sitting in a very interesting asymmetric situation that allows them to play off,
Good
I
old
guess
rope.
maybe an analogy or a metaphor would
Yeah.
be the ropes of the
Yeah,
ring.
rope-a-dope. Well,
And they could
seems
keep
to be
taking
working for them,
punches.
that's for sure. I just checked the crude oil futures. West Texas is fast approaching 95 now, and Brent is at 96, almost at 97. And they've been going up steadily. They, West Texas Intermediate was all the way down into the 80s. It's up. It was 108. Well, it's
Well, I saw Brent crude at 108 yesterday.
well,
Yep,
it fell.
closed at
It
108 on the 1st of June yesterday, plus or minus 3%. And then West Texas at 94 plus.
Yeah, it was.
It was in the
It's
80s
jumping up
yesterday
now.
for a while. It was low 80s for a while.
Yeah, well, like it says, it it goes up slow and down fast.
But this whole reserve issue we're talking about, that is, and everyone, we talked about it in the last podcast. The heads of major oil companies, are warning the same thing, as is one of my favorite guys on this issue of podcasting, Mr. Global. Check him out on his podcast sometime. He's strong on this, but he's been talking about this for quite a while. And the only people with reserves, China. Because they shut down all sales to anywhere. I mean, they weren't transferring anything out of that country. They were taking in. They were keeping it. They've got reserves. We don't.
Well, you got ExxonMobil Senior VP Neil Chapman and the CEO Mike Wirth talking about the EAI stock drawdowns, and Reuters reporting on near record U.S. gasoline inventory depletion. And then you got one of the seniors of Aramco talking about the same things,
Well, I want to play one other thing for you. Let me see if I have this queued up right here. I'm going to see if I can get this, but this is Hegseth 4 days ago in Singapore talking. Let me pull this up here real fast. Let's see.
While you're doing that, another little statistic. The market has lost over 1 billion barrels of supply since this thing began. 1 billion. And if you talk about accounting for barrels after redirected Saudi exports through the Aramco East-West pipeline out in the Red Sea, it's 880 million. But my God, and you've got like 600 ships, predominantly oil and product tankers. They're stranded in the Gulf with approximately 240 waiting outside.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step over you here. I'm not sure. I may have to punt on this, and we can do it next time. But I had it queued up, and I don't want to have to go all the way through it. But it was basically Secretary Hegseth.
Throw the rest of the world into turmoil. Did you
how Australia has and previous administrations haven't?
This is Defense Department or War Department, as he calls it, video
during the war and not repairing them.
This will all be President Trump's decision, but depending on what direction we want to go. We feel good about the partnerships we've had in the region. Those decisions will be made given the outcome. I mean, right now we're focused on being postured and prepared to re-engage if we have to. I mean, this is a high stakes negotiation. We've got the best negotiator in the world leading it. You know, Iran may not want to give up their nuclear ambitions, but we believe at the table they can and will over time, given the right set of incentives. But the most powerful incentive is the capabilities we have there right now, which they can't ultimately defend against at any real level. And those are decisions in the future the president will make based on how this ends. But I feel confident that he'll get to a deal that serves the interests of the American people. Last question.
Embedded in there is a comment, and it's not on this particular bite I have, where he said we control the Strait of Hormuz. And I think
Yeah, that's what's scary. Seriously, he believes that.
seriously.
Oh.
But I think that sort of thing's going. I mean, that is the kind, you know, the information that's flowing uphill to the president's desk, I think.
Oh my God, we've got
none
an internal
whatsoever.
play
He's
going
buck
on
naked.
called The Emperor Has No Clothes, Mike.
I mean, the whole, you know, it's like, you know, the implication is that we got so much military strength there, which we have a lot, but that we can open the Strait of Hormuz at any point.
Yeah,
and
good luck with that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
just
gotta say
wanted to
something,
point
you
that
know,
out.
from my perspective, you know, the only political appointee at the Department of Defense, there's a couple of good ones, you know. Secretary of the Army is really good. But Hung Kao, who is you know, in there as acting for Secretary of the Navy, that guy is solid and he gets this stuff. And by the way, you know, he's a career professional, Navy bomb disposal technician, Navy Special Operations. And I had the pleasure of running into him in 2009 in Iraq when he was with Task Force Troy. But, you know, what scares me, Mike, is that we have all this intelligence capacity that is trying to do the right thing. Well, they do the right thing. You know, it's unbiased, as fact-based as possible, intelligence production for decision-making, you know, and at a certain level, I'm sure that it doesn't get up because or it doesn't get, you know, past a certain gate. Maybe it's the Joint Chiefs or whatever, because they don't want to hear it. Hegseth doesn't want to hear it. The president doesn't want to hear it. The National Security Advisor doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Case in point, the guy that they just selected
And on
to be
top
the
of
new
everything
DNI,
else, he's supposed to run intelligence
absolutely
while he's
zero
still running
intelligence experience. I mean, come
housing
on.
authority. Yeah, they are.
The Russians are laughing their ass off. And the Chinese are too. They're like, oh my God, they're handing us America on a silver platter. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. When I heard that one, I was just like, is it April 1st?
You can't.
I thought it was April 1st.
It's
I
like
didn't-
every
I didn't know it was June
Yeah.
1st
You know, every
almost.
time I think they can't go beyond the pale, they get to a new level.
Oh God. So, well, anyway,
Yeah.
frankly, we're stuck where we've been stuck for weeks. You know, a little
If
back
not
and
since
forth
this
here,
guy took over the White House.
a little back and forth here. There is no, and we've been saying consistently on here, there is no motivation for the Iranians to come to any agreement, even a framework agreement.
Yeah.
I mean, they could do it if they, you know, a framework agreement, but
Well, they've laid
they're
out
not
some
gonna-
terms, you know, but, you know, again,
but
Trump,
they're not going to come to one that's going to eliminate their nuclear stockpile. They're just not.
well, you know, of course they're not. And what happens, Mike, is that, you know, we set conditions, agree to things so that there's a 60-day discussion that will then extend.
Right.
I mean, again, how many years did it take to get JICPOA in play? 3. You know, and we completely obligated and destroyed that whole thing the minute we joined up to bomb Iran on February 28th. I mean, JICPOA was still in play even after last summer's bombing of Iranian nuclear facilities at Fordo and, Natanz and all those places. I don't know.
Well, anyway,
One little
we'll
thing
keep
I want to
watching it,
share,
folks.
if we got just a second here.
Bobby, anything else you wanted to talk about? I know
Canada
there's something I
has
want to
slipped
talk about.
into a recession.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
this
no, we got.
graph that I'm
Yeah, go
about to
ahead.
show you really drives home how ugly and how quick it is. This is the Canada's economic weakness carries into the first quarter. Now here you see the third quarter of last year, and it's starting to slip pretty good. It slips right here, jumps up real good. Boom. It hit right there at the end of December. And now Canada has slipped in a matter of a month into a recession. Sure, you bet it is. But that's the point.
Is that fossil fuel
it can
related
happen
then,
that quick.
Bobby?
In a matter of a month, it can really hit you. And it's already hit Canada. One other quick thing. El Nino is predicted now to be the strongest ever, 80% probability for this summer. That means incredible drought, incredible heat, and a winter filled with snow and cold. Well, we're right there now. Wonderful path where the
What
drought
about
is
for you
going
all
to
there in
dry
Oklahoma?
every
Are we going to see
single
more
thing up.
tornadoes?
And we're already, yeah. So
What about this wild weather? What about this wild weather that occurs? With all the tornadoes and the you guys
Well,
have
the
had a hell of a
tornadoes aren't a
time.
factor right now for us down here in Oklahoma because the jet stream's in the summer pattern. There's rain predicted,
Yeah.
low levels of rain, low chances of rain for the next 10 days. But for example, Bobby and I are in Oklahoma City. We got no
Yeah.
rain last night, but 30 miles north of us, 40 miles north, they got like 2 inches of rain.
Wow.
So, uh, it yeah, I want to look at that map again, Bob, because are we kind of right on the edge of this? I mean, it could go either
Yeah.
when this
We
thing
got
kicks in.
story. Tell
I
a story.
actually,
Come on.
hey, you got time for a story?
Let's have story.
Well, so I know a little bit about this because I was sent down. This would have been in the 1990s. Would have been in the 1990s? No, 1980s, late 1980s. Anyway, God, I got to remember the date. But I was sent down to do when Fujimori was president of Peru. And the El Nino and La Nina, that whole thing happens right off the coast on, the Humboldt current hits right where Lima, Peru is. That's why it's got this dirty ass fog 300 plus days a year. And I was doing a story on this coming El Nino, which makes it wet in Peru. Fujimori had built dams in the deserts of Peru, several dams to create reservoirs, and it worked. They had these big ass lakes in the middle of the desert, and so I'm flying around with Fujimori in the presidential helicopter going around Peru, and there's a helicopter behind us. It was a Russian Mi-8. Is it? No. What is the transport helicopter?
Mi-17.
Mi-17. Mi-8's a gunship. Mi-17. I didn't know what was being carried in that. I know I was with Fujimori and his sister and my camera crew and his aides, and we're flying around this lake out in the Peruvian desert, and there's this big kind of thorn tree thing that sets out there next to the lake, and he directs the pilot to land it there. We get out, and this lake had filled up with all this water coming from this weather pattern, the El Nino weather pattern, and the helicopter behind us lands, and out of it comes champagne and caviar and all the liquor you can imagine, and white tablecloths and all of that. And they set this big spread out underneath this thorn tree, and you sit because it's hot as hell. And Fujimori and I, we're talking Spanish, and Fujimori looks at me and goes, "Let's go for a swim." And he gets up and swear to God, Fujimori strips down totally and runs into the water, which he's skinny dipping. So I had to follow suit. And there's a picture of me. I wish I could find it, but it's a picture of me and Fujimori, our heads bobbing just above the water in this lake in the middle of the desert, skinny dipping. And that is my El Nino
Thank
story.
God
I
it's
thought
not
I'd just tell
total
you that.
unity. The kids, my
I
God,
thought
would
I'd
be
just tell
scared
you
to
that.
death.
But it did happen. See, when was Fuji? It would have been, oh gosh. Yeah, I got to remember when that was. The exact dates. This is pre-Fujimori going to prison and getting into trouble and everything else for corruption issues. But it's a thing, and I mean whatever it is, it's that is the major. It'll make what the impact of what's going on. I think this El Nino weather pattern is super El Nino, not just your typical. I think it's going to
Yeah. By the way, Fujimori was president
really
from 1990
dwarf
to
what's going on in the
2000.
Gulf. I think it's that's right. So it was in the mid. I thought it was the mid '90s because I also was covering down there, but that would have been a previous president of Peru I was covering. Yeah, it was in the '90s. I did that. So anyway, hey, one thing I want to move to, if you guys don't mind, is 60 Minutes. And what has happened there over the last few days is extraordinary. With, the top leadership being whacked, with two of the correspondents being whacked, Celia Vega and Alfonsi, and then the meeting that occurred yesterday between Scott Pelley and the 60 Minute staff and Nick Bilton, the new executive producer of the show, and they purposely hey, you go into any network meeting,
Yeah.
you just assume you're being
Somebody's
recorded.
rolling tape. Yeah.
Hell, you go into any meeting, folks, just assume you're being recorded. So watch what you say. But in this case, the 60 Minute staff wanted this out. And Scott Pelley, who I know well, I've known Scott for, God, I remember the first time I met Scott Pelley, I was in El Salvador, and this would have been in the this would have been like 85, and he'd just been hired by CBS, and he popped into the NBC office to say hello. And I remember, and I've given him shit about this a long time ago, but he denies it. But he had the most starched, kind of jungle shirt with the epaulets and everything, and a pith helmet. But that's no reflection. That's Scott. This is first time working overseas, but Scott's a hell of a reporter, fantastic reporter. He has kept relatively quiet during all of this, and then suddenly he comes out and says it, that Barry Weiss, who Ellison has made his point person running CBS News, is trying to murder 60 Minutes. And that's the desire of Donald Trump. And the leverage that he's trying to use on Ellison so they can get that Paramount deal done with Warner, and that he'd have CNN come through. But it's truly extraordinary the way this has come down. I can't say it enough. And there's nothing. The show is growing exponentially digitally. They say they're bringing all these people, all those of us who are in television, we don't know shit about TV. Got to bring in the influencers. They know, and tech columnists. They know what's going on. They don't know shit.
Well, that's why I think our
60
podcast
Minutes is the
important.
flagship, the best news news program in America, and what the hell they're doing, any normal person would never do. It's just bad business, but it's because this is what Donald Trump wants.
Yeah, well, that's why podcasts like what we're trying to do are very important. And thank God there's some of these capabilities are out there. I will say that in talking with, for example, my
They're
kids,
adults. Yeah.
which, I call them, they're my children, but, they're adults. They don't get their news you know, from major networks. They're getting it from responsible social media sites and whatnot, like Substack and this sort of thing. So I think that's a plus. On the other hand, the fact that Ellison is able to exert this kind of control and doing it for the purposes to gain favor with the president, who would just as soon control the media writ large. I mean, the Washington Post is horrible. At this point, it's not even worth reading anymore. In terms of the editorials, it used to be really good and this sort of thing. But being able to provide detail and tell the truth, is rapidly departing the pattern for
I have to agree.
mainstream media. My opinion.
Well, here's the limitation. You can have, it's great. People can get stuff from Substack and everything else. But I got to tell you, in the end, I'm sitting in Oklahoma City. Bob's sitting in Oklahoma City. You're sitting in Virginia. Same thing with all these other folks in really big podcasts. They're not out there. It's correspondents and doing jobs like I did for decades that are going, that networks have the resources to pay for, to send us out there to see things. Right now, we're working blind, and that's good. People are able to hear real opinions, but the difference between that digital platform and the rest is you don't have eyes on the ground. You're using other people's lenses in order to see something. I need to trust my own eye.
Well, I not necessarily. I mean, I could take my iPhone and go out to Bahrain right now and start broadcasting live. Now, the difference between me, though, and a journalist like you, Mike, you know how to dig. I know how to do the research to put, like, what has happened already in context. But then, that really is just another launch point for somebody like you, for example, to go out and dig further and get, closer to the truth of the action at that tactical level. I've been thinking about this quite a bit as I'm developing, my news platform. And believe me, I don't kid myself. I'm not
Mike
a
told me a
journalist.
story a long time ago that
I'm a
I never
research
forgot.
journalist. There's
When
a
he
big
was
difference,
in Iraq, the press corps would largely sit around and take press releases. The TV guys had to go film it. They had to go look at it. Okay. So when it comes down to really understanding what's happening, that's what's disappearing. Guys like Mike going and looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
Well, I mean, hey, there's room for everyone in this, but right now, what I don't like is traditional journalism being squeezed. And I don't think people know what we're losing. I mean, look, when I started as a foreign correspondent, we probably, NBC, God, we had bureaus all over the world. London, Paris, Rome, Warsaw, Tel Aviv, Amman, Jordan, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Mexico City, Buenos Aires. I mean, the list was, probably around 14, 15 international bureaus. And now basically the networks are operating out of a hub of London. So things aren't what they, I wish we were there more than we are, but it's, we are depending right now, Ken, on those people holding up their cell
No, I,
phones
I,
in
I,
UAE.
I get it, but as we're talking, I'm brainstorming here. I mean, we got to teach the next generation of journalists how to operate with a portable Starlink in their phone, because you know what? They can get the message out. They can do, the on-scene investigation and reporting.
Yeah, but
They
but
can,
you're
and
talking
it's
about
teaching the tradecraft. But then again, when you talk about the behemoth networks and whatnot, if they're all being controlled, where does that leave people? Well, it leaves them to doing, like, I think,
Colbert, yeah.
what's his name? Late night TV host, not Kimmel, but Colbert. He's got his own YouTube thing now, and within an hour, there was over 150,000 subscribers. I don't know where it is now, but you have these alternative means. And the kids today, among other things, know how to drive and, drive
yeah,
that bus. But in one way, I'm
but
kind of excited about the idea that, there could be a subverting of the controls that, people like Ellison are trying to put on things. Got to think about that.
yeah, no, it's true. But I'm just saying the news product we're getting is less, and basically in this war in the Gulf, everything is shut down. You get arrested in the UAE if you're showing those videos. Shooting around like
Well,
that, and I probably same in Saudi Arabia.
it'd happen
Probably
anyway if you
Bahrain's
were
not going to be
with
too
your
happy either.
cameraman for a major news network.
Say that again.
It would happen anyway if you were a cameraman with major news network.
Well, but we're a hell of a lot sneakier. I can tell you
Well,
real good sneaky
See,
stories.
that's the start of the tradecraft I'm talking about.
Yeah,
High def,
no, we're good at
4K,
being.
or 4K.
You say we're not in the same business. We're in the same business, frankly, except
Well,
my report doesn't go and it's not classified and go to
Yes.
the president of the United States. My report is unclassified and goes to the American people.
well,
Same
you guys
information
are
they-
in there, like spies. The traditional
Well, we're
role
accused of
of
being
a
that
case
anyway all the
officer.
time.
The
Everywhere I went,
traditional
we're
role of
spies.
traditional role of a case officer is to build out a network of people that will go and turn secrets, turn over secrets in their country. Anyway,
I can't begin to tell you how many countries I've been arrested and accused of being American intelligence. Because other countries use their journalists that way. We're prohibited under federal law from doing anything like that.
not to make light of it, Mike, but I've never been arrested and accused of being a journalist.
Well,
Yeah, 'cause we're almost at an
it's gonna
hour,
happen
guys.
someday, buddy. On that note, I think we
It's
should
been
wrap
fun.
it up. But God,
Okay.
yeah, we've
Well, this has
gone
been
quite a
good, though.
while.
I think this has been good.
Okay. Hey, let's
Okay.
check back
See you
soonest
later,
here and
guys.